So how I can't go out and meet real estate agents. Who's going to trust an 18-year-old kid with their clients, right? So I had to start building relationships while hiding behind the phone.
Welcome to The Growth Mindset, the podcast for ambitious real estate and mortgage professionals. Hosted by Adam Crosley and Riddle, this show dives into entrepreneurial strategies, sales techniques, and mindset hacks designed to fuel your career growth. Get ready to learn from top producers, gain actionable insights, and start your journey towards success. Here's your hosts, Adam and Rick.
All right, welcome everybody. This is another episode of The Growth Mindset. I'm really excited today, Adam. It's funny when I think about growth. Obviously, we talk about entrepreneurs, and a lot of times we talk about salespeople. But I've been excited and been wanting to get Matt on for a while. Matt, who I'll introduce in a second, he's almost the epitome of the growth mindset. I'll give a quick background. Matt is the Matt VanFossen, the CEO of Absolute Home Mortgage, but just that title alone doesn't give justice to probably his growth mindset, right? He's big in the finance tech space in the mortgage industry, and probably always thinking about taking the ball forward, right? And especially on the technical side. So welcome, Matt.
Thanks, Rick. You're too kind with your Matt VanFossen stories always.
Yeah, I was going to give my Matt VanFossen story, but sometimes the story is not is a lot different than the truth. So I figured I would say welcome and maybe share a little to our audience, a little bit about our podcast. It's obviously we work at Crown with you as our parent company, Absolute, but it's really just. This is more about entrepreneurship and growth, and I think of you as in the things you've done in your career, and maybe share a little bit about you and your mindset that got you there.
Yeah. So Matt, tell us how you got started in mortgage and in this wild world that we all live in, and what's Matt's origin story?
You want the mortgage origin story?
Yeah. How did you get from that guy who got his LO license a long time ago to running multiple companies?
Well, it's interesting. It started with my first company. My first company was in high school. Me and my best friend opened a computer company. And this is back in 2001. We opened it. We were sophomores in high school. And back then people were downloading music illegally with Kazaa and LimeWire. And we had some system restore disks and some external hard drives. We were backing music up, wiping out the computers. Back then, a computer was $3,000, and we would charge $100. And that's how it all started. We started our first business, and that was the first establishment of being an entrepreneur. Was opening up a small business in high school.
It wasn't called Napster, right? It wasn't called Napster.
It was not. No. It was called, and that was the funniest thing. So many of these core cultural items looking bigger than you were, right, was a concept back then. We called it Innovative Network Administrators, INA. We had a really corporate name for this little 2-person tech company that we were running out of my parents' garage. And we made good money though. It was great having a bunch of cash, and that's what led me into the mortgage industry. My best friend's dad, who was my business partner, he was a Remax agent. And, we're talking to him about, what we want to do and our mindset and how we want to make money. And we were interested in maybe potentially becoming real estate agents to make extra money once we graduated. We knew that we wanted to keep on the tech path. And he introduced us to Marvin Rosenberg, actually. He introduced us one day. He brought us into Marvin's mortgage office and said, hey, I have this business friend. He's very tech oriented. I think you guys can help him with some technology. I want to introduce you to him. And the first day in Mortgage Land, he took us to a sales presentation, a sales coaching presentation. It was a Jim McMahon presentation. And we went in, I had a suit on. I was, 17 years old. And then he took us to Marvin's office afterwards. And we met Marvin. We sat down with him. Marvin saw these two kids, and he told us the money that can be made in the mortgage industry. And I was super interested in it. So what actually wound up happening was we started working out of Marvin's office. I would go in every day after school, start calling. I was calling ugly yellow sign leads. Marvin used to put up these signs on real estate riders that said, find out how to buy this ugly house and call this number, and would data capture their cell phone number. It was like really advanced tech back in 2001, 2002. Yeah. And that was my job. I would come in every afternoon. I would hammer these leads. I would sit across the desk from Marvin. I would listen to him take applications. I would handwrite the applications out, and then I would go back to the system and input them. And, this is before like LOAs were even a thing, right? It was just broker processors back then. And that's how I learned technical mortgages. And then it kept evolving.
You were the original LOA. You're like the Oregon Trail of LOAs.
LOA, right? But then I started showing a bunch of like tech stuff too. That was the first concept of mixing my technology background into mortgage originations. Now I'm still 17. When I turned 18 back then, this is pre-NMLS, it's 2003. I got my New Jersey solicitor certificate, and that's when I started hammering the phones. But it was difficult because I had to hide behind the phone, and I wanted to be a referral agent. I didn't want to be a consumer direct guy. So I can't go out and meet real estate agents. Who's going to trust an 18-year-old kid with their clients, right? So I had to start building relationships while hiding behind the phone. And what really came together was I got a phone call from my uncle one day, and he was opening a real estate company in Yardley, Pennsylvania. He was a Weichert agent. He had retired from Merrill Lynch. And he goes, "Hey, I'm going to open an ERA office. Can you and Ollie come out and do my systems?" Because he, knew I had the tech company. So we came out, we installed, bought all his computers, installed it, did all of his office cabling, his office setup information. I said, "Hey, Unc, I'm a loan officer now. I would love to get this in-house relationship." So he said, "All right, let me think about it. Let me talk to your boss, talk to Marvin." And that's when I got my first branch. So probably about 8-9 months in, I wind up with a branch office inside right on Realtor Row in Yardley, Pennsylvania. Wind up, having FaceTime and being the recommended mortgage rep for this office. Got my first 20, 30 agents. Had to work and penetrate those relationships. And how I did it, I said, "Listen, don't give me your 50-year-old buyer. Give me your first-time buyers. Give me your 100% financing. Give me your subprime loans, right? I'll work through these difficult files," and I had to earn the business. And then it started to snowball. From 2003 to 2008, I didn't wind up leaving Marvin. I wound up opening a brokerage called United Capital Lenders. Met some business partners along the way. They had this crazy concept. They had a concept of the first virtual mortgage company. So I met with these guys, first virtual mortgage company, virtual net branches, right? Everything, centralized LOS, centralized processing, all this stuff. Now, at that time, I had actually gone and gotten my banker's licenses. I was studying compliance. I was getting my banker's licensing. I had my own company. I had 3 states worth of licenses. And there was a bunch of mortgage companies going out of business in 2007. And they said, "Look, we think that we can run into this model. We think we can go and get all of these mortgage companies that are going out of business, grab their branches, and we're going to run the first virtual mortgage company." And I started asking them technical questions. What's your core LOS going to be? What's your point of sale system going to be? What's your web architecture? How's the LOS going to talk? What's your branch management systems? And they didn't really know. And I was like, okay, I have the licensing. I know how to build all that stuff. And we partnered up, and we took over a couple other mortgage companies. And I wound up with summer of 08 to or 07 to 08, we wound up with like 450 loan officers and like 80 branches from everybody going out of business. And that's what we put together, this company called United Capital. And it was like true net branching. So we were running that for a while, and then Dodd-Frank came into play. And now we had this whole wave of everybody saying, okay, we can't make money on the front and on the back anymore. We have to disclose our commission now as brokers. We don't want to do that. We need to become bankers. And if you remember back then, that's what everybody was doing, is moving from broker into banking. So now we need to take this brokerage model and be able to handle all the new compliance, the Dodd-Frank, all this stuff, the disclosure issues, the MLO comp issues. We knew we needed to become bankers, so we started calling down our investor lists, the banks that we were sending business to. And I always thought banking was this big, big deal, like having underwriters, warehouse lines, credit decisions. We just didn't know. And we found a company that was actually smaller than us, but had underwriters, secondary market, and bankers. We found Absolute Home Mortgage. So we decided, we talked to them and we said, look, if we go put our couple of hundred loan officers in with your banking platform and your small wholesale platform, it's the perfect marriage. And we merged the companies together, and that's how we got Absolute as it sits now. And I became the chief operating officer of a mortgage bank at 23 years old in 2010. And it was really, really interesting, or maybe like 2009, whatever year that was. And I was running all the branches. I was managing the underwriters, and we learned a lot over the way. But what I think the biggest attribute to the entrepreneurial spirit was opportunity. When I go back and I look at all of it, I look at the journey, and I've had people say to me, Matt, you're 38 years old, you're 20 years in, you've built a top 100 mortgage lender, you did it from the ground up. Like, what's the secret here? I said, you know what? There are so many people along the way that were afforded that same opportunity. But rather than putting themselves last, they put themselves first. They were in it for short-term gains. How much money could I get out of the company? I sacrificed so much. There was times we didn't make any money at all because we couldn't afford it, right? There was times that I had to pallet that the salespeople were making 4 or 5 times as much as I was at different times. But I wanted them to. I wanted to put the company first at all times, and I wanted to capitalize on that opportunity, right? Because I wanted to build something special, a cultural organization. And I think that the biggest secret sauce was I wasn't scared to work. Looking back on it now, the stuff that I was doing in my 20s, I would never want to do again. I used to be in the ceilings, running cables, installing computers. Every time an employee got onboarded, I was the one that was installing their point of sale and LOS systems on their computers. They did every onboarding call. There's no way I want to do that stuff again. But that time in my life, I was so motivated to build that I didn't care. You call me the janitor. No task was too small, regardless, or even too big, regardless of my title. I wanted to win. And I capitalized on that opportunity. I kept building and building and building, right? And then you hit a certain point where you now have a foundation, right? You have that system infrastructure. You have the procedures at the company. You start plugging the right staff. You cycle through a couple of people, but you find your right players. And then these once in a lifetime opportunities can come along. And, when I look back, I think 2018 meeting Rick, Mark, and Bobby in the Crown Group and saying, wow, I have this infrastructure. We can copy and paste it, right? We can take this model and we can rebrand it. We can build another one inside of it, and we can double it up. And that was like a defining moment where I think that, Absolute already had a great brand, but we looked a lot bigger in the street than we actually were. And when Crown came in, we doubled up the sales force and then doubled up the volume. That just was a timing fluke because 2 years in, what did we wind up with? We were at 2020. And then we had the largest sales production increase and we took off. But if everything that happened the 8 years before that, all the sacrifices, all the hard work, all those layers, if those things didn't happen, then I wouldn't have been able to do Crown, right? Because I wouldn't have the infrastructure, the name, the branding, right? And if I didn't have Crown, then we wouldn't have went from a $80 million a month company to a $400 million a month company in 2 or 3 years. We wouldn't have been able to capitalize on the biggest gain. And then we wouldn't have had all of that success to ride off of to then fight us or help us fight through the worst downturn that I think was even worse than '08. So it shows you that through capitalizing on opportunity, maximizing it, having a mission and a path, as long as you stay true to it, then you can accomplish it. Where most people, I think, fall off is startups are like chewing on glass and staring into the abyss. It's not going to be easy. You're going to fail so many times. And the CEO's desk is where everything goes, where it's make or break. It winds up on your desk and you have to make these decisions. They're tough. It's going to feel like the world's ending, tons of times. But your ability to push through that stuff is going to be the defining moments for anybody that really, a lot of people say they want to be entrepreneurs. They say they want to do these amazing things. But do you have the grit to actually power through the worst times imaginable?
I think there's a couple of things in your story, and thank you for sharing. And awesome. Your story is a lot more in depth than the story I sell on the street. But I think two things that as I'm listening come to mind is there's a naivety, right? That you just did it, right? You didn't think about, I have a saying in my mind, you make your own luck, right? The hard work makes your own luck. And maybe there's some luck along the way, like you fell into these little places along the way of your journey, but it was almost like, I'm just going to go for it. Like you had a vision and there's some naivety into the vision that helped you. And the other thing that I think is even more important is you sacrificed short-term or personal gain for the long-term vision, right? And I think that as entrepreneurs, the game isn't the short term. The game isn't necessarily even the money. The game is the journey, right? The quest to build something that's memorable, to build something. And I think as sales leaders, if you're effectively leading people, you sacrifice, your own personal production to help others, right? And I think there's a big, you kind of hit the nail, right? Like it also probably helped that you started younger in some ways, right? Because it's not like I had at 23, it wasn't like I had a wife and 3 kids and,
Yeah, you can take more risks.
You can take more risks, yeah.
Yeah. And, it's funny, Rick, like certain things happen, you look back, like we're going to Triple Play next week, right? I remember about 7 or 8 years ago, I saw this guy riding around on a hoverboard on the floor at Triple Play, right? He's riding around and we got everybody so gimmicky, right? Yeah. Wound up being Bobby D, right?
There's me and Bobby. Bobby he was better at it.
But I saw that year and something clicked in my brain. And I said, you know what? Screw it. And I remember we had this guy, Mike Kelly, working for us at the time. I turned to Mike, I go, watch this. And I grab a microphone. We had a bunch of giveaways. And I start just doing random games on the trade show floor, getting tons of hype. I start raffling off tablets. I'm like, dude, go to Best Buy, go buy 15 tablets, right? Come right back. And I start just having fire sales. And there was a couch in the middle of the aisle. I jump on top of it, grab the microphone, and I'm like, I'm going to light this place up, right? It was like one of those moments that I was like, I wanted to show the salespeople that we can create a buzz. You just have to have the willingness to do it.
Take action.
But, you
be maniacal, right? You got to be maniacal. You got to be, you got to think outside the box, right? And obviously our business, I always say, we sell debt for a living. There's nothing sexy about it, right? It's kind of boring, right? But if you can make it, the entrepreneur makes the boring seem exciting, and it's funny, when we joined you in 2018, and I always think Triple Play, and for those that don't listen, don't know Triple Play, it's a real estate convention. I always say it's like realtor spring break. It's in Atlantic City. Honestly, it's a shit show. But it's your time to be maniacal, right? And to let your hair down. It's always in the winter months and in December. And I think that part of our attraction is you guys did appear a lot bigger. We didn't know who you were, but you guys were a big spectacle, just like our company was a big spectacle. The company we worked for at the time was a big spectacle. And it was like those kind of that mindset kind of attracts, and I think that the entrepreneur, why me and Adam work so well together is we kind of have that entrepreneurial mindset. I'm probably a little crazier than he is. Maybe that's why we make a good Batman and Robin, and he's Batman and I'm the crazy little Robin running around.
Well, it comes down to like culture is internal in an organization, right? And the leaders, sales leaders drive culture. But there's also this external opinion of your brand to your peers in your industry. We all want to build sales teams. We all want to recruit, right? But what does your brand and people that have never been introduced to the interior culture of your organization say about your company, right? And that's an interesting part that we always tried to build around, is saying, you've never seen our company from the inside, but from the outside, what do you see? What, does it look like a welcoming brand? Does it look like a group of people that you want to work with? I think that we've all done a great job at both Crown and Absolute of showing everybody out there that, this is a group that you want to be a part of.
Yeah. Well, perception's reality, right? And when you can have that brand that's attractive and fun and, this is who we are. This is what we do. Yes, we have a great time, but it's also we get shit done as well. And when you can do that from the top down, that gets into every section of the business.
You could say we have a great time closing a lot of mortgages.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So, the takeaways, right? If you're not the CEO yet of the company, you're still the CEO of you, right? And and be a little out there, take risk, but have a plan, right? I think that there's a lot of risk takers in our industry that don't really have a vision or a plan. So I think that one of the big takeaways is take some risk, be maniacal, be memorable, but more importantly, your plan should be a long-term vision, not the short-term game of, I want to make $5,000 on this loan this month. There's not a single loan officer or single salesperson that can retire on one unit. Maybe if you're selling.
Yeah. And don't let short-term failures affect long-term goals, right?
Yeah.
Don't let losing an account or missing a sales opportunity derail you. You have to just move on to the next one.
Yeah. It's funny. I equate that to, I think about athletes, right? And I wish I was a better athlete, and I wish had the talent. But Barry Bonds, forget about the steroids. He didn't think about how many home runs he hit. He thought about his elbow being up, his stance being right, his swing being right, his body going into fluid motion, knowing if I do all those things right, I'm going to hit a lot of home runs.
Well, look at Wayne Gretzky, right? You miss 100% of the shots you don't take.
Right.
So, like that, think about that. There's so many people, I run into so many entrepreneurs that think they know what they want, but they just don't ever get it started. They don't ever take the first leap of faith. Well, if you never take that shot, that's never going to happen. One day you got to wake up and just do it.
Jump off the building and build a plane on the way down.
Exactly. Remember, it's harder to build a plane in the air than on the ground.
Nice. Well, you know what, and I appreciate you for sharing your story. It was awesome, and hopefully people. I thank you, and I thank you for our partnership. It's been.
I appreciate it.
Absolutely.
And,
it's been a wild 5 years.
It's been a wild journey, right? And I'm excited to celebrate with everybody this week. We're gonna come together. We're gonna show our accounts how much we appreciate them. We're going to show our salespeople, right, why we're part of such a great organization. And we're going to recharge. And if it was do more in 24, Rick, we're going to thrive in 25. Is that what we're saying?
Boom. Love it.
So, cool. So excited. So thank you so much for joining us on the Growth Mindset. Thank you, everyone that listens. And sometimes these don't come. This might not be published till after. It will definitely be published till after Triple Play. But thank you guys for listening in. And Adam, do you have anything else to add?
No, just thank you so much, Matt. I appreciate you carving out the time, and I definitely think this is going to help the listeners grow in their own journey.
Yeah, you got it. Thank you both.
Thank you.
Thanks, brother. Cheers.
This podcast has ended. Go in peace.
You've been listening to The Growth Mindset, hosted by Adam Crosley and Rick Riddle. Don't forget to subscribe, leave a review, and share this episode with your colleagues. Stay tuned for more actionable insights to fuel your career success. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time. The views and opinions expressed in this podcast are personal and do not necessarily reflect the official policies, positions, or opinions of Absolute Home Mortgage Corporation or Crown Home Mortgage. The content is intended for informational and entertainment purposes only and should not be considered professional advice or an official endorsement by either organization.